Hi everybody, welcome to our lecture for Chapter 1 on Organizational Theory. We're going to be looking at the Owens and Valesky text first. It is the primary textbook for this class. I think there's a lot of really good information in this textbook that's going to help you better understand organizational theory and really give you a good background on what this class is and what it's supposed to be. My name is Lou Sabina. I'll be your instructor for the course. This is my background, this is what I am, this is who I am, and I'm excited to be teaching this course for all of you at the doctoral level. I've done a lot of organizational theory work with principals, so I hope to learn from your experiences as current and future administrators and really give you a good class with a great experience. So this class, why do you take this class? Why should you care about this class? Here's the main ideas. This should be used to help you with a theoretical framework for your dissertation or future publications. You're going to take practical classes and you're going to take theory classes. This is your theory class. Your work has to have a theory of some sort. So my hope is that the content from this class helps you write your dissertation and form your theory. If you need help with studies, projects, anything, any desire to do research studies, I want to help you. My interests are really org behavior, human resources, professional development, school finance, but I'm strong with theory and I want to be your theoretical guide as you look over the different studies that you're going to be doing. So what is organizational theory? We're going to give you some definitions. I just want you to try to work through these and understand them as I talk about them. So it's how different organizations, such as businesses, bureaucracies, schools, or school districts are studied. How they relate to the external environment, how they relate to the internal environment, and how people that are working inside an organization behave. It comes out of sociology, but I would argue it is part of all business now as well. Really, organizational theory is sociology and business just getting married, and then this is what you end up with. Great field, very interesting field, and one I care about very much. People study it to really give interdisciplinary factions to education. Some people use it to improve their standings and understand how people act in different organizations. Some use it for lateral moves. Some use it to find other organizations that are better fits for them. And some will actually use this to see, how they can apply other theories from other disciplines to their current organization. So I'm going to give you some samples of organizational theory and how it's viewed in other disciplines. If you were taking this class face-to-face and you were here for this chapter, I spend 4 hours going over Chapter 1. But what I do is I put each one of these on the board and we talk about some of the perceptions. We obviously can't do that in an online class, and for those of you that are watching the videos. So what I want to do is pretty much just show these to you and give you an example of them, and we can talk a little bit about them. So if you're applying org theory to strategy and finance, in all honesty, you're looking at it more from a results-oriented perspective. We're worried about the bottom line, so it's going to be quantitative. Profit maximization really turns into optimization organizationally, because that's when we eliminate necessary cost in productions. One of the big lessons that you'll learn is the organization does not care for you as a person. So organizational theory can be used strategically to really exhibit control and power over individuals as well. So that's another practical application of organizational theory. Human resources. Everything dealing with compensation relates to organizational theory in some form. Ask yourself what the best amount of money to pay somebody is. What is the best amount of money to pay something? This is blunt, this is rude, but it's true. The best amount of money to pay somebody is the least amount of money that they're willing to work for. It's going to keep them happy. You determine the best amount by prior practice, and you determine it based on prior experiences as well that individuals have. So business and communication is really knowing what you can use organizational theory to communicate with stakeholders for, and that there are different languages and different personalities in different organizations. It's different in Oklahoma than from where I'm from in Pennsylvania. Same can be said from a small business to a large organization. Small businesses, I can fire whoever the heck I want. If I have less than 25 employees, I can get rid of somebody for any reason. Large organizations, I have much more legal restrictions on what I can possibly do. Where do people get away with sexual harassment more? Honestly, they get away with it in small business more than they do large organizations. But there's a reason for that, and we'll look at that. So, when we talk about marketing and promotion for organizational theory, I always use this example. I look at advertising, and if we were doing this face-to-face, one of the things I would tell you would be to look at the different advertising strategy campaigns that people use. If you're in second or third, you always attack who's number one. Coke does not acknowledge Pepsi in their ads. Pepsi acknowledge Cokes. Burger King and Wendy's are always attacking McDonald's. Coke doesn't acknowledge Pepsi. McDonald's doesn't acknowledge their competitors. That's a big idea, and that's important when we're looking at organizational theory from a marketing and a promotion standpoint. So, are schools organizations? Well, nobody in this room would say that schools aren't organizations, but you have to realize that, schools do operate as businesses. And the sooner you realize and the sooner you accept that, the better. Is it everything that happens in business? No, but schools are used to foster learning and growth of adults and children, and that's why we do humanistic steps in education. Business, I want to change something, boom, snap my fingers, it's done. Education, I do not do that. I'm going to do that more, more looking at it from a human perspective in education. So, expecting schools to follow small incremental steps is not realistic. Because we have schools and we have organizations that have these high pressures for accountability, and there's nothing that you can do about these accountability pressures. The schools that have the best chances for continual improvement are, honestly, they're your schools that are your schools that are performing well. Your schools that don't have because you can make changes and you can do them slowly. Urban schools requiring massive reform, you need to change them immediately, which is a business practice. So how does that look, and what does that seem to be in schools? This is another challenge and another possible problem that you all have when we're looking at schools is organizations. So key ideas and key things that I need you to hear. All organizations are different. All schools are different. But there are similarities between what one district looks like, what one school looks like, that will help you find the best way to improve them and improve their systems. So theorists will tell you that there are similarities that can be used in all schools and all school districts for improvement. There are different elements that require different types of analysis, and if you actually understand the context of the organization that you're studying, you have a much better chance of being able to do organizational improvement. So, what do I do? I look at hiring. I look at hiring of teachers, principals, and superintendents in job conditions that they experience. But one of the things that I like to look at, I like to look at schools that don't need anything. Because they have a surplus of teaching candidates. They have 100 people that are fighting for one job. And I like to look at low-stressed environments where teachers and principals can pretty much do whatever they want. I do this because I can then define what that looks like and how that can better improve organizations that can't find people. That's my goal. I'm looking at it from the reverse that a lot of other people are doing, but I do that because I want it to help me find my niche in what I do. So, my argument is that organizational skills, they're transferable, but they're transferable in certain ways. At the end of the day, somebody in Owasso that's an effective teacher, there is no guarantee that they're going to be a highly effective teacher in Tulsa. But there's a better chance that a teacher in Tulsa would be highly effective in Owasso. Why wouldn't an Owasso teacher be effective in Tulsa? It's a different culture, it's a different clientele, it's different responsibilities. And that's going to cause organizational challenges. So when we look at the reverse, somebody who's good in Tulsa will probably do very well in Owasso. When you've been shooting at a smaller basketball hoop and you've been sinking it and then you expand the rim and you expand the size, you're going to be more successful. Dealing with the external conditions will make it easier and more transferable when you move to a more easier school district coming from a difficult one. So I always ask people in class what their objectives and their goals are. Obviously, you're watching this video online because you weren't in class, but I ask you, how many of you want to be a superintendent in a powerful urban district? How many of you want to be a superintendent in a rural district? How many want to be a curriculum director, finance director, stay a principal? You need to understand who you are and how your interests can actually impact and improve an organization. So here's my question. Why do we give everybody the same amount of training then? Why do you all have to take the same classes? Shouldn't classes be customized for the experiences you want to have? We can't do that though, because that costs money, and that costs opportunities, and that costs experiences that you might have and I might not have. But your dissertation is the customizing to help you reach your goals. And this theory that you use should help you reach your goals. So for K-12 students, we always argue we need to do whatever we can to make those customizable experiences for K-12 students. I do want to stress this, and I think this is a big idea. You customize education for kids really starting around 3rd or 4th grade, but when they get to middle school, that's when it starts to be customized. We don't do this at 4 and 5. And we don't live in a society where I just pick everybody's careers. This isn't like Divergent or the Hunger Games, where you live in the society. This is the career that you're going to be taking. This is what you're going to be doing, and that's important. I mean, that's probably a good thing though when you actually take the time to break that down as to what that looks like and what it should be. So, using theory the right way. Organizational theory should help us make more informed choices. Good theory is based on good research. Research on how to make schools more effective, it has to be stuff that's been around for a while, come from multiple sources, and for professional practitioners, which all of us are. One of the good things about us is that I'm a professional practitioner. I came from a professional practitioner background. I have taught in schools. I have been an administrator in schools. So I can speak to my experiences, and I can help people over the events and what they're trying to do. So what I would have people do right now, and I'm going to walk you through this, and I'll pretty much read this. I would have people talk about, the different examples of how they applied organizational theory to different subject areas. And I would say, come up with ways that schools can use these. I would give them to you. Again, all 4 of our concepts that we looked at, there they are, you see them. And then I would ask you, is that research? And it is research. Because we took it, we looked at considerations, and we were able to relate them to what individuals were doing. So if we did this face-to-face, you would have been just doing research. So there are different perspectives on education. We're going to start, we're going to look at bureaucratic and non-bureaucratic theory. I want you to look at each one of them so you're able to explain what experiences you've had in education that have been bureaucratic, and then also what experiences you've had in education that have been non-bureaucratic. They're equally important. So bureaucratic theory is a factory model. This is basically saying that top-down management, bottom line is production, and everything is goal-oriented. Management decides what's to be done, directed workers do it, and then they supervise them. There is a division of labor between what management does and what employees do, and that's bureaucratic theory. And we're going to go over in a later lecture who is responsible for bureaucratic theory, but it comes from the work of Weber, comes from the work of Frederick Taylor, and you can obviously look at that on your own if that's something you're interested in. So what do we do? There has to be control. There has to be hierarchical control. There has to be good vertical communication. There has to be good, clear written rules and guidelines on what you can and what you can't do. Once again, I would argue this is equally important. You have to have different rules and different standards so that people understand what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And as you need more workers, you need to add more supervision of people. So think about this. You all had to take a school reform course, and in it you should have at least looked briefly at a nation at risk and what it was and what it stood for. A nation at risk really was used to cause top-down bureaucratic structural change to schools, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on how it should be, how it should be assessed. So here were the main results of what a nation at risk meant and what it represented. Once again, these are things for you to think about and consider. Don't necessarily have to be the end results of it. but it says that we should have 4 years of English, 3 years of math, social studies, and science, and a half year of computer science. Foreign language should start in the elementary grades. Four-year colleges have to have stronger admission standards to make it harder for people to get into college. I laugh at that one more than anything else. School should be 210 days a year. Yes, some states are doing that. And teachers' pay should be market sensitive and performance-based. That's not going to happen. And the government should provide supports to key groups that need it, which that was one of the best things about A Nation at Risk, because it gave options and it helped give our special ed students more of what they're looking for in schools. So if we were taking this class face-to-face, I would ask you how much of this exists in your school setting today, and you'll find that a lot of it does, or at least it's close to existing, which is a good thing. And some of it has changed. My definition of computer science might be different than your definition. For me, when I hear computer science, I think of programming, but that's not necessarily what the intention was of A Nation at Risk. So next we have the non-bureaucratic theory. This is the human resources development view of working with stakeholders in education. This is basically that the teacher's in charge of their own classroom. They make change, which has been empirically correct with research, and this relates to the concept that White discussed, which was really loose coupling. And I'm doing a book chapter on White, and it's something that I'll talk about if you watch the video on White. So at this point, I'm going to stop because our next second half of this lecture really is tied towards motivation. So we'll cover that in a little bit, but for now, you can take a break and you can pick up with motivation next. Thank you.